In this tutorial, I'm going to take a look at showing some examples of adding integers. And we're going to start with, 5 different examples on the left where we're adding 2 integers that have the same sign. And then there's 6 over here where one's positive and one is negative. So first of all, and I want to show these a couple different ways. So positive 3 plus positive 5. So what we would do with the number line is positive 3, so here's 0, and of course this is the positive direction and that's the negative direction. Okay, so positive 3, we'll go 1, 2, 3, and then I want to add 5 to that. From where I ended at the end of the 3, I want to go 5 more. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So notice I'm ending at positive 8. So positive 3 and positive 5 would add to positive 8. Okay, so each time I'm going to just erase my number line here so it doesn't make things complicated with the next one. So positive 4 and positive 7. So I'll start with 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I want to go 7 more. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I need 1 more to make 7. So that would be 7 there. That would be at 11. So positive 4 and positive 7 add to 11. I'm going to generalize after do these first 5 here, some patterns. So let's erase this. I guess we left the 11 there. Next one's negative 6 plus negative 4. So remember, the negative direction is going to the left. So let's start at negative 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's the negative 6. Plus negative 4. So then I would add 1, 2, 3, 4 more negatives. So notice I'm at negative 10. So that would equal negative 10. Let's erase this. So the next one is negative 2 and negative 8 plus negative 8. So negative 2 would be that. And then to add negative 8, which means we're going to the left 8 more. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that would equal negative 10, just like the last one. You could think of this like a temperature scale. Like if you started and the temperature's at negative 2 and it goes down 8, it would be then at negative 10. So that's another example. Okay, let's erase this. My pen back. Okay, last one, negative 3 and negative 4. So negative 3 would be that. And then we're going to add negative 4. So we're going 4 more left. And we end up at negative 7. Now, what I want to generalize is this. Let me erase these. I'm ready for the next ones. So notice that when you're adding 2 integers with the same sign, whether they're both positive or they're both negative. So all I'm doing actually, if they're both positive, see I'm adding 3 and 5 to get 8. I'm adding like 4 and 7, that equals 11. See, 6 and 4 add to 10. 2 and 8 add to 10. 3 and 4 add to 7. And you just keep the common sign. See, these ones up here, I'm going to go back to my arrow. These ones up here are both positive, so the answer is positive. If we're adding 2 positives, the answer is positive. If we're adding 2 negatives, the answer is negative. So we add the 6 and 4, it's 10, and it's going to be negative 10. Okay, an example of this, let's say you owed one friend $6 and another friend $4. Well, altogether you owe $10. Negative 2 and negative 8, so 2 and 8 is 10, and it's negative because they're both negative. Negative 3 and negative 4, so 3 and 4 add to 7, and they're both negative, so it's negative 7 is what those add to. Okay, let's go back to, so in the next example, so we're adding 2 integers with different signs, negative 3 and positive 8. So negative 3 would mean that we would go first over here to negative 3, and then to add positive 8, which means I'm going back 8 to the right, to the positive direction. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we would end up at positive 5. Notice something here. You see, I went left 3, and then I immediately went in the opposite direction 3. So it's kind of like that left 3 and the first 3 that are going to the right, they actually add to 0. So, and what we're left with is just this. See, that's the positive 5. Okay, I'm going to generalize some rules for these 6 here. So let's erase this. Go back to my pen. Okay, so G, positive 3 and negative add to negative 8. So positive 3, there's the positive 3. And then to add negative 8, we're going to go 8 in the negative direction. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So again, it's like I went to the right 3, and then when I'm doing the negative 8 part, the first 3 that I go back, those cancel out or add to 0 with the first positive 3s in their positive direction. And so, see, this is actually the negative 5 here. So it adds to negative 5. So positive 3 and negative 8 add to negative 5. Okay, let's get rid of that. Okay, so H here. Negative 6 plus 6. So negative 6 plus 6. Negative 6, so that's the first number. We would go 6 to the left. And then we're going to add positive 6. So I would, from this point, go 6 to the right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So notice I end up exactly where I started. So those add to 0. These are called opposites. And opposites always add to 0. Even if you had bigger numbers, like if you had negative 27 and you're adding positive 27, those are still opposites, and those would add to 0. Okay, so the opposite of two numbers always add to 0, because it's like the positive is how much you're going in the positive direction, but then the negative takes you the same amount back in the negative direction, so you end up at 0. Okay, let's get rid of this up here. Okay, so I, positive 9, so we were going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then we're going to add negative 12 to it. So I'm going to go 12 back here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that would add to negative 3. And see, I've got a whole bunch of these ones, like all the way from here to here, that, you know, I went 9 to the right, and I went 9 back to the left. So that all adds to 0. And you see, what we're left with is just this little bit here that we went 3 to the left. That's the negative 3. If you really wanted to, you could think of this as positive 9. And you could break that negative 12 into, it's the same as negative 9 plus a negative 3, because negative 9, negative 3 would add to negative 12. And you see this part adds to 0, so that's why the answer is negative 3. Okay, let's get rid of our number line stuff here. Bring my pen back. Okay, so positive 7 plus negative 15. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, that's the 7, and then negative 15. So I go 15 in that direction. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and I'm going to go 8 more because I'm going 15 to the left. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So we add up, it adds up to negative 8. And again, you see all the parts that added to 0. Like that's a positive 7, I went to the right, and then I went back 7. So again, you could think of this as positive 7, and if you break that negative 15 down into, it's a negative 7 and a negative 8. Because negative 7 and negative 8 add negative 15. So you see, this all adds to 0. That's why the answer is negative 8, because I still got 8 to go to the left left over after I do all that adding to 0. Okay, so let's get rid of all this. Back to my pen. Negative 8 plus 12. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, that's the negative 8 plus 12. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'm going to go 12 altogether, so I'm going to go 4 more. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So we end up 4, positive 4. So again, you could think of that as negative 8. And then we could think of that 12 as a positive 8 and a positive 4, because 8 and 4 add to 12. So again, see, this whole part adds to 0. That's why the answer is 4. Okay, or a reason why the answer is 4. Now, I want to generalize some things about adding two integers with different signs. So I gave quite a few examples how you can break this down here. Okay, so what I want to show you is in these where one's positive, one's negative, is that the 5 part comes from actually finding a difference between the two numbers. 8 minus 3 is 5. 8 minus 3 is 5. Okay, and the reason that's positive 5 is because, see, there's more positives in the 8 than there are negatives in the 3. So that's why it's positive 5. This one's negative 5 because there's more negatives in the negative 8 than there are positives in the 3. So that's why that's negative 5. And again, it's 0 because the difference between 6 and 6 is 0. Okay, again, we're adding a positive and negative. Okay, and there's no sign to the 0 because they're opposites. 0 is the only number. It doesn't have a positive or a negative sign. The answer here to this one is 3 because, again, if you're adding a negative and a positive, we subtract the 12 and the 9. Okay, so it's 3. And then, see, there's 3 more negatives here than there are positives here. That's why it's negative 3. This one, again, 1 positive, 1 negative. So we subtract 15 and 7 to get 8. And there's more negatives. In fact, there's 8 more negatives here than there are positives here. That's why it's negative 8. Last one here, we've got a positive and negative opposite signs we're adding. So 12 take away 8 is 4. And it's positive because there's 4 more positives here than there are negatives here. Now I want to show you another way to think about these 6 examples when you're adding a positive and a negative. So here's a different way to think about these. So this first one here, negative 3. So these are these are called integer tiles. So the purple ones are negatives, the blue ones are positives. I didn't really put a plus here, but if you don't see a negative, it's positive. So here's my negative 3, and here's my 8 positives. There's 2, 4, 6, 8 here. So if you think about it, you see this part here, just like I showed the number line, that all adds to 0. And see, what's left over is the 5 positives. So that's why that would be positive 5. So that's another way you could think of that. So here's another one, the second one, the G. So positive 3, so there's my 3 positives. Negative 8, so there's my 8 negatives. And again, see, these pairs all add to 0. Like that adds to 0, that adds to 0, that adds to 0. So you see what I have left is 5 negatives. Remember, that was that 5 going to the left. So that's why, or an example of why, that would equal negative 5. In the next one, remember we were adding negative 6 and positive 6 in this one. So there's the 6 negatives, there's the 6 positives. And you see all these pairs, see, that adds to 0, negative 1 and 1 here adds to 0, that adds to 0, that adds to 0, that adds to 0. See, there's an equal number of negatives and positives, so they all just cancel one another out. And so that's why that equals 0, because there's no like little bit of positives or a little bit of negatives left over, because the two numbers are opposite. It's not like one is bigger than the other. Okay, so next example, we're adding positive 9 and negative 12. So here's my 9 positives, and here's my 12 negatives. And you see all these pairs. See, those two add to 0, 1 and negative 1. That pair adds to 0. And all the way along, that's that like going 9 to the right and then coming 9 back. Okay, it takes me to 0, and all I have left is the 3 negatives, and so that's why that equals -3. So next example, we're adding 7 and -15. So here's my positive 7s, or 7 positive ones, and here's my 15 negatives. And remember, we've got a whole bunch of opposites that add to 0. So like this one, -1 add to 0, same here, same here, same here. And that's all that going 7 to the right and 7 back. And then after all those pairs add to 0, see what we're left is there's 8 negatives here. And so that's why that would add to -8. Okay, last example with the integer tiles here. So I'm adding -8 and +12. So here's my 8 negatives, and here's my 12 positives. And again, we have a whole bunch that add to 0, all these pairs. 1 and -1, 1 and -1, etc. And what's left over is just 4 positives. So that's why that would equal +4. So there's some strategies for adding integers, whether they are the same sign or opposites. So same sign, you just add the two numbers and keep the sign. -6 and -4 would add to -10. When they're one positive and one negative, you are subtracting the numbers. So 8 take away 3 is 5, and it's positive because the bigger number is positive. It's -8 and 3, so again we go and subtract 3 from 5 to get -5, and it's negative because the larger number is negative. So that's some strategies for adding integers, and I hope you found this tutorial helpful. Thanks.